Most of us have experienced arm pump and fatigue, whether it's a long bit of snotty single track or a hill climb that just never seems to end. Stegz Pegz are simply brackets that hold a little rubber puck that helps you lock your boots in place so your arms and upper body can spend more time controlling the bike instead of just hanging on for grim death. Steg Pegz kindly sent me a pair to try out on the new 250 EXC. Fitment was a piece of cake and took all of 5 minutes. They're a very snug fit against the bike, and there's a bit of padding on the back of each bracket to make sure they don't scratch your side covers. On the KTM, it looks like the bolts would need to be loosened to access the air filter, which is no biggie. The rubber pucks can be moved forward or back to suit your riding stance. The instructions said just to try the standard position first, which I did. I wound up just moving mine about 1 centimetre forward, which has been perfect. At first glance, the rubber pucks look so flush with the side of the bike, you wonder if they'll do much at all. But a quick ride showed just how well they were anchoring my boots against the bike. When you grip the bike, they provide great grip against the boot, and your arms no longer have to work at keeping you positioned on the bike. I noticed on the forums that a lot of guys felt the Stegz Pegz were mainly good for desert racing and flat terrain. But within a few minutes, I was sold on how anchored I felt on the bike, regardless of the terrain. This really stood out on hill climbs. When the track gets steep or slippery enough for wheel spin to kick in, usually the way to get extra traction is lean back over the rear wheel. This usually puts a lot of strain on the arms, but with the Stegz Pegz, the legs do all the work, and suddenly those long hill climbs are nowhere near as tiring as they used to be. And if you like longer wheelies, the Stegz Pegz are simply awesome. You just lock the boots in and your arms barely have to hang on at all. Looking at the forums, most riders seem to fall in love with their Stegz Pegz, but I noticed a few don't like them because of downhill runs. You need to stop gripping the bike with your legs to allow your boots to move past the rubber pucks in order to get your body positioning to the rear of the bike. Like a lot of riders, I keep the knees apart on downhill runs to allow the bike to move around as needed, so I didn't have any issue with this. The rubber pucks seem to have just the right profile to allow your boots to grip or slide past with just a slight movement of the legs. Actually, I did notice some riders feel the profile of the rubber pucks wasn't high enough, and they were either fitting a second set of rubbers on top of the existing ones or spacing the existing ones out using washers. For me, it wasn't an issue on the KTM. They just worked perfectly as they came. I spoke with several guys who have Stegz Pegz fitted, and we all noticed that they actually encouraged us to grip the bike more, and we all felt our riding in gnarly conditions had improved as a result. It was interesting along rocky creek beds. Normally, you keep your legs apart to allow the bike to move around as needed, but if you do get out of shape or just need a bit of throttle to climb up a bit of a rock, you just seem to grip the bike automatically and your boots are locked in. I found this very handy in the loose rocks if the bike was thrown off course. We've been doing a lot of cross training lately that's applying trials techniques to the dirt bikes, and at some point I thought the Steg Pegz would have to be a hindrance and get in the way. But because there's this emphasis on keeping your knees apart at certain times, the rubber pucks just never got in the way. It quickly became a second nature thing just to ease the legs apart a tad during any downhill runs and just let the boots slide past the rubber pucks. I swapped bikes at one stage and felt all over the place on the KTM without Stegz Pegz, and the arm pump was back within 5 minutes. It was surprising what a difference they'd made and how quickly I had adapted. As far as I can see, the only possible drawback is the price. It's a fair bit of money to spend if you are one of the few people who just simply can't let go of the legs with your bike and may have trouble moving past the rubber pucks on downhill runs. But it would be well worth trying them for a few rides at least, which some guys do. A lot of them seem to adapt and eventually simply can't ride without them.